So I played 5 more action RPG games. Half of them were recommended by you guys in the last video, the other half I found myself. The rules are very simple. Number 1, they have to be isometric. Number 2, they have to have some kind of loot system in the game. And number 3, they have to have action combat. Let the games begin. Be funky. You need to try Spark in the Dark. The demo is out and you can play. Okay, here we go, Spark in the Dark. The hardcore dark fantasy dungeon crawler, where you will go to the endless depths of a mysterious grim dungeon. Release date to be announced. No reviews yet. RPG, adventure, action, dungeon crawler. Okay, let's check it out. So my first impressions of Spark in the Dark, the game looks good. So you start off choosing 1 out of 4 different classes: the blacksmith, warrior, hunter, and thief. Now Spark in the Dark has complete permadeath. In other words, hardcore mode all the time. Now the game has a very basic inventory system that focuses on realism. So when you pick up an item, that's it. You have to replace something else with the item. Here's an example, bone axe. Ready? I'll equip it. See? There's my sword on the ground. And each item has its own stats, although they are very basic. And you can see how it affects my character stats here on the right. You do not allocate character stats. They automatically improve just by playing the game. So every now and then you might get a +1 to agility or a certain stat, but it's very rare. Now, unfortunately, the game lacks a lot of features just being so early on in development. See if there's a map. No map just yet. Aren't a lot of options as well in terms of like settings. This is it. Okay. It looks like there's environmental damage as well from enemies. See that? The spider just hit the zombie. Killed him. I quickly learned that enemies can attack other enemies. This became a huge part of the combat for me. The game does not say that it's a Souls-like game as well, but it is. It's very difficult. You have your stamina bar, your dodge roll, all of the basics. But the difficulty comes from the slow and clunky combat. Get out of there. You pretty much always want to hit after being attacked. Very rarely will you attack first, and if you do, you're going to get punished because of the animation speed and the combat being reactionary. I believe the idea is to really convey a sense of realism. Now, when you're hit, one of the 4 following things is going to happen. Either you're going to lose like 1/3 of your health. You're going to have to kill this spider in the dark. You're going to get poisoned and will eventually die from it. We'll see how the poison goes. I have no antidotes, no potions. Or your gear will be damaged, making it even harder to continue to play. Armor is damaged, defense reduced. Or sometimes enemies will just straight up knock the weapon out of your hand, leaving you completely vulnerable. On top of this, when you add in the darkness mechanic, darkness is consuming me. Wait, I take damage if I stay in the darkness too long. Okay, that's different. And traps hidden in complete Vanderblack. Oh, there's a trap on the ground there. Look at that. It asks a lot from the player. Extreme punishments in video games are fine, but when you mix it with slow, reactionary combat, permadeath, it feels like Spark in the Dark took the control out of my hands as a dungeon crawler and left me feeling cheated out of just playing the game. Now, one feature I did really like, when you die, the game will give you stats on your run. The game has no story or characters. It really is just a vibe, and I thought that was okay. Spooky music. They're not trying to entertain you with orchestras, no drums. They're really trying to set the mood. Now, choosing one of the other classes will not change this experience. You will always feel pretty ineffective. Reload crossbow? 3 bolts. Wait, is that it? It's also worth noting that there's physics on monsters on the ground. Everything here, like, see, it like slows you down, gets in the way. As if the combat wasn't clunky enough, most action RPGs will not add a hitbox to a dead enemy on the ground. I quickly found that the only real way to play this game effectively was to completely ignore the combat, as in grouping up large amounts of monsters together, circling them, and baiting them into hitting each other. This was very fun for the first time. This being the most optimal way to play the game is not what you want out of a video game, guys. I can't imagine any modern day action RPG getting away with this. Review time. Spark in the Dark is a Souls-like first action RPG with the dungeons giving me a Diablo 1 vibe. I like dark games, but dark works best as an aesthetic, not figuratively where I can't see what I'm doing when playing. Your hero's combat is way too slow and clunky, changing it from a challenging experience to just not being able to participate in the game. On a positive note, I think Spark in the Dark may find a cult following amongst a certain group of players, and with the game being so early on in development, I can only see it getting better. I also really admired the effort into realism. Would I recommend Spark in the Dark? Based on the build that I played, I do not recommend playing this game at the moment, but definitely keep an eye on it. I'm a ghost, yeah. Some good ones are Victor Vran and a whole lot of other ARPGs here. Alright, Victor Vran, let's check it out. Victor Vran is the isometric action RPG where your skill is just as essential as your character build and gear. Released 2015, 3,400 very positive reviews. Action RPG, hack and slash, RPG, adventure. Alrighty, let's get into it.
Adrian is a friend. One of the precious few I have.
Very edgy, man. Yeah, dude, it's Geralt. For a slightly older game, I think the graphics really hold up. By the way, the graphics on the game, everything's cranked up to max. I already really like the formatting of the UI. All of it is smooth. The visuals are holding up. One of the unique things about Victor Vran is verticality. Okay, so jump, then press spacebar again when close to a wall to do a wall jump climb. There we go. So amongst your basic skills, you also get these really cool ultimate abilities, and they're very powerful. Press 3 to activate demon power. Oh yeah, we've got another ability here. Meteor. Okay, we got it up. Let's try it.
Oh, a demon power.
Surprisingly, the game introduces guns, which do not usually work with action RPGs, but in Victor Vran, it does. Press I to open your inventory and equip a new shotty. All right. Wow, so I put the new shotty on and I've got all new abilities. Although the voice acting really is top quality, eventually it wore down on me just because of how frequent it was and just the writing. You know, get a feel. Oh, there we go, chest.
Yes, you found it. Good boy. What did you get? Something shiny.
I don't like the condescension in the narration. You know, call me good boy. It's a bit weird. Now, because the game is focused just on one protagonist, Victor Vran, they handle classes in a different way. They call them outfits. Select your outfit. Hunter, Cavalier, Vigilantes, or Wanderer. All of the NPCs in the game have this wonderful portrait art that really is next level, and it depicts the characters' positive and negative traits. Look how good the art is in this model here, this character. I think it's fantastic. Looks wonderful. Again, just absolutely blown away by these little drawings that they've got here. Very cool.
If this happens, I will hold you personally responsible. You hear me?
Seems like a bit of a wanker, that dude. Now, Victor Vran has somewhat of an old school approach to the gameplay. So when you go into a new zone, it'll actually break down all of the challenges that the game wants you to do in that map. So it might be collect a certain amount of chests. It's a little bit of a throwback on how video games used to do things. All right, it's giving us some challenges. Use 10 demon powers, slay 25 spider eggs, slay all the spider nests. Now, amongst your gear, there is a secondary customization option. They're called destiny cards. Essentially, these are cards that you acquire. You have a certain amount of points, for example, 6 points. Now, to equip one of the cards, it might cost 2 out of your 6 points. Or it may cost 6 out of 6 points, allowing you to customize your character even deeper for your build. Although the combat falls fairly short from most modern day action RPGs, you do get these really satisfying moments. Oh, that was so satisfying, that shot there. Like I mentioned earlier, amongst your basic skills, you get ultimate abilities. The wonderful thing about the ultimates in Victor Vran is they're items that drop on the ground that you need to find. And it goes even deeper as well. Each ultimate ability has its own stats, so you can farm the same ultimate that you really like and get better DPS output just by finding a better version of the ultimate item. You'll also find quite a large range of different ultimates throughout the game as you play. I was pleasantly surprised at the settings in the game. Oh dude, I dislike this like camera shake when I attack. Man, hopefully we can change that. Camera shake, there it is, look at that. Beautiful. Now, one of the big hooks when it comes to this game and what makes it stand out from others is your skills come from the weapons that you find in the game. Let's say you find a scythe or a sickle, you'll now have access to a whole new range of abilities. Let's test out the first ability. So this one is called Shockwave. Does no damage. The stun. And of course, you can't have an action RPG without Whirlwind. Oh, that's the old classic. It's back. Another cool little feature was the game has these cool bombs that you can use, and they're really awesome. Now, you can expect pretty much the basic stats on all of the weapons, critical hit damage, gold find, experience, all that stuff. I did feel that some of the challenges that we spoke about earlier were a little bit counterintuitive. I have a challenge where it's like, don't use a potion, I get, but where it's like, don't use the cool, fun ability. This felt a little counterintuitive.
This place for a specific reason, Victor. Come down and I will tell you.
It's been alright to the game, but yeah, that one was a bit bad. I think it probably could have used some like cool post effects. I think that was the goal of the voice actor. It wasn't great. When I say post effects, this is what I mean. I've put this together. Keep in mind, I'm not an audio engineer, but this is what's in my head.
This place for a specific reason, Victor. Come down and I will tell you. This place for a specific reason, Victor. Come down and I will tell you.
So the bosses in the game are not great, they're not bad either. They're just straight down the middle, definitely the type of ARPG bosses you would expect at the time when this game came out.
57, 58, 59. Ah, you made me lose count. Now I have to start all over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ah, this is awesome now. Now we're getting somewhere. How good is this? Review time. I think Victor Vran was probably at the time a really fantastic action RPG, but since time has gone on, it falls a little short on what's available out there. Although I think it's an enjoyable single-player ARPG experience, would I recommend Victor Vran? I personally would not recommend Victor Vran, although I can see the game going on sale for extremely cheap and it might entertain you for a couple of hours. Peacefinder, simply. Legit recommend Last Epoch. A lot of people call it a much more accessible Path of Exile. It's still in early access, but it's already really good and arguably a top tier ARPG. Just a side note here, Last Epoch has been overwhelmingly the most recommended action RPG game for me to check out. So that's what we're doing. Low key, thanks to everyone who recommended this game. There was a heap of you. Awesome. Last Epoch. Uncover the past, reforge the future. Ascend into one of 15 mastery classes and explore dangerous dungeons, hunt epic loot, and craft legendary weapons and wield the power of over 100 transformative skill trees. 18,000 very positive reviews. Action RPG, hack and slash, RPG, loot, indie. Okay, let's check out Last Epoch. My first impressions of Last Epoch is the game has one of the best class systems in any ARPG I've ever played. It may appear that they have your standard sword and board, rogue, ranged character, mage, druid, and a necromancer type class, but it's the way the game expands on these classes and the way that they play that makes them exceptionally unique and really fun. From a visual perspective, you get these wonderful moments in completely differing environments. From one moment you can be in grasslands, on the other hand you can be looking over this infinite space-like abyss, somehow locked and in between times. It's a really cool thing when you pick up an action RPG and the combat is awesome. And that's what Last Epoch does right. I have zero criticisms about the combat in this game. It's fluid, it's always interesting, and it has so many different options on the way you want to play that you'll just never get bored. Now, one of the many different strong points in this game is the itemization. It's exceptionally complex, easy to learn, but difficult to master. So the way that the game handles just your general damage output, or DPS, if we take a look at, say, a Diablo-like game, the damage comes from the weapons that you equip. So your weapon might do 1000 DPS per second. Well, in Last Epoch, the damage comes directly from the spells that you use. The way you increase the damage is by getting a certain affix on the actual weapon itself. Number 1 will be +2 melee damage, and number 2 will be +2 spell damage. So if you've got some cool lightning spell that does 100 damage, well, you might have a weapon that'll add 30% more spell damage, increasing it by 30%, but it goes even more deeper. If you have say a lightning ability that's also classed as a melee attack, then all of a sudden you've got melee damage and spell damage for your different types of skills on the same weapon. Now, I'm grossly oversimplifying how it all works. I'm leaving out crit damage, attack speed, all the other extra stuff that goes on top. This is just one example with the class that I play. And if it sounds a little bit confusing, the game helps you out by telling you if the spell is melee, if it's lightning, if it's fire. It'll display it in these little tags underneath the spell, which I found was a massive help early on in the game. Throughout my playthrough, I played on the mage class, which is not typically what I usually play, and I was absolutely blown away at how fun this class plays. One of the things that they absolutely nailed with this game, whatever class you choose, you specialize into a secondary tier. So in my case, playing as the mage, I later specialized into the Spellblade, which essentially is a melee mage. Now, these specializations are for all of the classes in the game. Essentially, each class is really 2 different classes at once. So you've got the selection of 5 at the start. Really, it's 10 different classes. I noticed very quickly one of the ways that Last Epoch kept me engaged in the combat and playing through it. They do this beautiful dance between huge monster density and high health enemies that'll just be 1 or 2 at a time. In my case, I had this really cool spell that did this huge amount of burst damage that I would save specifically for the very high health enemies. There's also a very large range of monsters, keeping everything interesting. I really like this Easter egg paying homage to Diablo 2's Enigma, which has been foundational for the entire genre in general. I also noticed playing Diablo 4 that they've taken quite a lot of inspiration from Last Epoch, which is very interesting. The game has an extremely sophisticated crafting system that does take a little while to get used to. Rather than going out of your way to find the absolute best unique item in the game, you can find a basic yellow item on the ground that might have 1 or 2 affixes that you like and completely tailor it to the way that you want to play. The game has a very interesting and complex story that I think sets Last Epoch apart from other action RPGs. I won't give away the story, but what I will say is that it focuses on time, and throughout your gameplay, you will actually shift through different eras in time, hence the name Last Epoch. At times, it can be extremely complex and difficult to follow along, but I value that because it is telling a mature story rather than just your cliche good versus evil. Now let's talk about the #1 feature in this game. It's the skill tree. You can see all my spells down below. Every single one of these spells has its own entire skill tree. The skill tree is also really well done. It has notable visual differences. Every time you pick a new tier, you feel like you've just found some new overpowered ability, and that's for all of them, and that's the way you want to feel. I actually got to a point in the game where I was completely happy and satisfied with the abilities that I was using, and all of the tiers that I was adding was just extra bonus on top. Like, yeah, why not have my icicles pierce enemies at a faster rate? Sure, let's chuck that on. Now, the game also has a pretty cool passive system as well that gives you a little bit more power. It's somewhat similar to Paragon points, but a little bit more sophisticated and fleshed out, and has a little bit more weight than just adding 1 or 2 stats here and there. Now, the game is $50 Australian. Honestly, it's worth every single dollar. The size of the game is enormous, and then when you throw in the depth of itemization, crafting, the 5 different classes that you can play with the 2 specializations in each class, it's extremely fairly priced. There are some cool little small things that I really enjoyed. There's this button in the inventory that you can press that'll vacuum all of your crafting materials. It's so satisfying, and it goes into an inventory that is already managed for you. You don't have to do anything. It's just there when you want to start crafting. Review time. Last Epoch is undeniably one of the best action RPGs available. 11th Hour Studios have done a fantastic job. The idea that the game is still in early access, getting frequent, massive updates is fantastic. The only criticism that I've got for Last Epoch is I felt the art fell a little bit short to the quality of this game. Now, the reason why I'm being critical about this is because after playing Last Epoch, I hold this game to the highest standard of action RPG. It's up there with Path of Exile and Diablo IV, so we can expect the best. I feel like some of the character models might have been one of the first things they designed when bringing out this game in 2019. I think there's room for improvement there. You've got these wonderful moments in the actual world design, but I think the character models can go an even higher step up to what they already are. Would I recommend Last Epoch? Yes. Sacred 2 Gold. Defeat countless dangerous enemies, capture powerful weapons and valuable treasures. Prepare yourself for the ultimate battle and become a legend. Alright. 2,000 mostly positive reviews. RPG, open world, hack and slash, action RPG. Well, looks like we're going back in time again. Let's do it. So my first impressions of Sacred 2 are, boy oh boy, did this game not hold up well with time. You gotta remember, this game came out at the same time as Batman Arkham Asylum, Dragon Age Origins, Left 4 Dead 2. We can get a bit of a glimpse here on what we can expect. This is gonna be old school. This is going to be real old. 2009. So when you kick the game off, you get to name your own character. There are 7 characters or classes in the game, 2 different campaigns, 6 gods, 2 difficulty settings, and 2 game modes. So quite a lot of options and depth with the way you want to play. Immediately, the controls are, to be 100% honest, they're terrible. Essentially, the A and D key control the camera rotation. Your left click is to move and attack, but at the same time, the camera also automatically follows your character. Now, luckily, you can turn the camera off in the settings, but man, it just feels awkward. Sometimes it's just the small things that impress me with video games. A couple of different areas. Kind of like that effect that they've got on there. I mean, it's a bit old school, but it's pretty cool. Combat in the game lacks any kind of fluidity. It's just clunky. You just kind of stand there and attack stuff. And then when you throw on top of this terrible dying sound effects, it makes for a really rough experience. Most video games have a similar control schematic. For example, you're going to press R if you want to reload a weapon. In Sacred 2, it's completely all over the place and not where you think the keys are. Unfortunately, my coconut is blocking the inventory, but you do get to see some of the UI, at least with these skills and stats. Outside of the extremely ugly UI, the character stat system is pretty basic. It's okay. Okay, here's our first waypoint. Resurrection Monolith. It was nice to see some familiarity with waypoints, place to sell your gear, townspeople attacking enemies that come into the town, just all that cool basic stuff. Again, you know, some small features often impress me that make a big difference. Oh, that's pretty cool. the whole middle mouse button, it'll zoom in on an overlay map. In terms of questing in the game, it really is just fetch quests. So, oh, look at that, 120 gold as the reward. Bring me 4 yellow foot herbs from the Cobalt camp. I don't want to come down too hard on the game regarding fetch quests, because most RPGs of this type relied on them to fill out the game. But it's 2023, fetch quests, not fun. About 1.5 hours into the game, this happened. I think the game crashed. After a quick reboot, we jumped straight back into the game. I also noticed that the spells and skills in the game really underwhelming. They're not exciting at all. They're about as basic as it gets. Now, having not played this game before, I was completely put off guard by the gift system in the game. What's Divine Gift? G. What the f was that, dude? All right. Whoa, what is this thing? What just happened? Okay, I guess we're fighting this dude. Oh, he's back. He's not. He's still there. He's back. I was pleasantly surprised that the game has mounts. Okay, I think we have a mount now. Oh, sick. Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's sick. I found this an absolutely wonderful feature. It was great to see it in Sacred 2. So on my new mounts, I was cruising around the map and then this happened. We have to get around this big mountain. No, don't, dude. Don't crash. Fucking hell. Fucking game's crashed again. Second time. This is it, guys. Sacred 2. I could screenshot and some music. And occasionally you can play. Now, this was the second crash in about 3 hours of gameplay. Both crashes forced me to restart my entire computer. Now, I looked into this further on the Steam page, and I noticed that this was not unique to me or my PC, it's the game. Review time. I know a lot of people have some nostalgia with this game. I think that's great. Personally, this is one of the worst action RPG experiences I've ever had. The game will crash every hour, hour and a half, and even at the time when the game is running, it's clunky, slow, awkward, and boring. Would I recommend Sacred 2? I wholeheartedly would recommend that you do not play this game. I think if you are someone that has nostalgia for the game, I also recommend that you don't go back and play it because your happy memories are more valuable than going and playing the game again and feeling the disappointment of its current state. The Mageseeker, a League of Legends story. The Mageseeker is an action RPG in the League of Legends universe. Alright, this is different. Release date, 2023. This all came out about a month ago. 1,400 very positive reviews. RPG, pixel graphics, 2D, hack and slash. Let's go. The Mageseeker has somewhat of a unique development. Riot Games, the creators of League of Legends, created a publishing company called Riot Forge, and they used third-party video game developers to use their IPs to make new games. This is a Riot Forge action RPG. Straight away off the get-go, immediately impressed by the art. The visuals, everything about it is pretty, it's magical, it's very pleasing on the eyes. Look at the animation on the waterfall, guys. Oh, I can only imagine how much time. Man, this water is awesome. It's also worth noting that I've never played League of Legends before, so coming into this game, there is no fan service for me. I do not know who the characters are or anything like that. The game handles skills and abilities in a really cool way. All right, new ability. You actually steal the power from the monsters you're fighting against. Okay, so when we copy an ability from an enemy, we can now equip it as a spell. The basic attacks are fun. It relies heavily on combos. There it is, there it is. On top of your abilities, they each have a Pokemon style scissors, paper, rock, weakness, and strengths against different elements. For example, when I was fighting the very first mini-boss, my melee attacks did no damage to him, but fire was extremely effective. So there are 6 different abilities. Like I mentioned, they all are effective or weak against each other. They also have a very basic little skill tree and upgrade system. And later, as you move on throughout the game, you can actually hold 4 of them at a time and rotate in between them fairly seamlessly. Here's a fun little way that the world interacted with my character. Very old school RPG. There's quite a lot of variations between these beautifully handcrafted soldiers, elemental mages or wizards that you have to fight against. I think one of the ways that the game manages to capture a retro feeling, the movement is not a true 360 because of the sprite animations. You can only really move in, I'm guessing, say 12 different directions, similar to Diablo 2. The game has a couple of fun, very simple little puzzles with chests hidden around the world. Your main motivation of playing the game is to go out and explore. Every time we go out of the world, we unlock someone for our town and we can use their specialty to get stronger. Now, on top of your spells, you also get these really cool combo attacks. Wow, check the combo on this thing. XXXY. So 3 light attacks, then 1 heavy, and it will do the combo. It's like kind of Street Fighter. There's the ability, by the way. Uses no mana. As you progress further through the game, you'll be introduced to enemies that are more difficult. I thought this was a mini boss, and it took quite some time for me to figure out how to kill this guy. Well, it turns out he's completely immune to light attacks. Only heavy attacks do damage. And around about half an hour later, this particular, let's just call him a mini boss, became just a normal monster that you fight against, making the combat feel like it's escalating as you progress. I found that the enemy's abilities were also very well designed. Extremely annoying at times, but in the right way of annoying, if you can imagine what that would look like. I don't know if this was a bug or not, but this particular encounter with an enemy was pretty interesting. Maybe we dash and then hook? Nah, invisible walls. Yeah, that's it. That's it for this area. Oh, no way. There was a guy hiding. You see that? Now, boss fights are very well designed. They strike that perfect balance of difficult, and if you stick with it, you'll get it. I think this guy took me maybe 8 attempts. You can see the amount of variations of attacks and how I'm jumping from stone to stone to avoid his attacks. The big helmet boss also transitioned from fire and ice, forcing me to rotate the spells that I was using so I could be effective against him, all the while I'm getting bombarded by his attacks. It's all really cool. Review time. The Mageseekers is a roguelike first, but plays like an action RPG. They did a fantastic job with this scissors, paper, rock elemental system, along with creating an unbelievably beautiful world. The combat is extremely fluid. Just a side note, I played on the controller for this particular game, and it requires the player to sequence 4 different buttons just to get off one type of skill, and there are many different types of combos that you need to do. There is quite a large learning curve. Would I recommend this game? I think if you enjoy roguelikes, I would definitely check this game out. But if you're more into the hardcore action RPG side of things, this game will probably not offer enough depth for you to enjoy. Catch you next time, friends.